Alright, well, it's the dead of winter, and I'm going to disconnect the battery while you listen to the heater warm up the garage a little bit. And I'm disconnecting the battery because I don't know if I'm going to remove the instrument cluster or not. So since I don't know if I'm going to touch anything electrical, I'm going to make sure that the current is not flowing. So go ahead and I'm just going to disconnect the negative. My goodness, are these screws long. Alright, so here's the new Volvo part number 3130271. Ooh, made in Germany. So here is the part in the bag that's not open yet. So I'm going to open that up. So as you can see, the new part has a lot more to it than the old part, which broke. And we purchased the vehicle used, so this was already broken. But it was working fine until this piece finally went. So I purchased a new one, and I will put it on now. So this is going to be a reassembly video because it took me a while to figure out how to get it out of there, because really that opening that the steering wheel is going through, that square, is really the dash, and I really didn't know if I had to take out the instrument cluster or not, which I didn't have to, so I didn't really need to disconnect the battery. But anyway, that's alright. I did have to get the steering column out of the way. So what you want to notice is the steering column has been pushed to the side. See, it just kind of wiggles, and the reason for that is so the piece can go back on there. There's really no room to pull it out. That's how it stays captured. There's no screwing it on. There's no bolts in there. It just slips right on, and the way it stays in place is this. There's no gap right here. It's just real close to the edge, and so it can't slide off. It can't slide off and pull off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this all the way over to the side and then slip that back on. So I'm going to do that off camera. Alright, to show you what I did in more detail is I left the right side as it was, and I kind of backed the left side out a little bit. So now that I have it hooked on and the right side is all the way in, I'm going to kind of tap that back so that the top lip catches the hanging point. Okay, so what I did is I took the back end of the screwdriver and I put it up against it and hit the tip of the screwdriver with my no-maul hammer. And that kind of drove that piece up onto the ledge there. And like I said, the other side was already flush up against there. So there's the other side all flush up against there. And now I'm going to put the bolts back in. I'm going to start them by hand and then screw them in. It was one click at a time. First off, the thread lock, I don't know if it was, disengaged previously. I mean, I have done some work in there, but I don't remember removing these bolts. I remember tightening them after I bought the car because they were loose. So maybe the repair shop did something. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my little tool in there, and then I'm going to get it started before I put the ratchet on there to finish it off. And I'll do that on both sides. So it was so tight for me, what I ended up doing is just taping it to the bit so that it wouldn't fall off, so I could get it up in there straight and get it started. Oh, getting the lights and camera and everything all lined up is a real pain in the butt. But anyway, I wanted to show you that I have both bolts started, and now start ratcheting them back in there, one click at a time, So let me get at that. I have both bolts on there really tight, and the main thing is the steering wheel is not moving freely. If I release the lever, of course, I can go up and down and in and out. Well, maybe not from this angle, but anyway, and when I lock it in place, the steering wheel doesn't move, so that's good. The rest is putting all the little bitty pieces back together. Also, can you see the turn signal here? I would also like to point out that these little pieces here are very specific. So if you look on the back, the way they're keyed, it's not really symmetrical. You see how these little pieces are offset. You want to make sure everything goes together correctly on the clamshell when you put it back together. So just be sure to remember to get everything on there correctly when it goes back together. Alright, so I have the top clamshell on, and notice how the washer around the turn signal is straight and clean and ready to go in, and then I just kind of have the bottom piece hanging there, and notice I also have the lever down in the unlock position. So now I'm going to manipulate it and fit it in place, and then start the 3 screws underneath. Now what I have to do is I have to get those tabs aligned with the slots they go in, as well as getting the bottom clamshell up into that rubber piece right there. So that's kind of fun. So let's go at it. Alright, so what I didn't show is it just kind of fits together, and you have to just work it all in with your hands and get it started on the other side where the starter is, because there's a big hole in the bottom clamshell that goes up over the starter, so you need to get that all straightened out. Then you need to get your washer in there correctly. Then you can pop in the other side, and it just clicked right in, nice and neat and fancy and easy peasy. But I also had to work the bottom right corner of this to get it in place. So make sure your washer's oriented correctly, else you are just going to have a really bad day. Alright, now we just put in the 3 screws that hold the bottom clamshell to the steering wheel, and then we'll be done. Alright, so here we are all back together. Up, down, left, right. Lock, unlock, down, out, in, out, lock. Everything's good. So I'll reconnect the battery, and we'll be good to go. Alright, well that was fun. So my tools were a T40 and a T25, a long screwdriver to pull the tab out for the bolt and push it back in, and then a 10mm to disconnect the battery, which doesn't need to be done, but you know, it never hurts. Alright, we'll put the battery back together here, and then we'll check the clock, make sure that's correct, and then I will put all this stuff back together, which is mostly towing stuff. And then what I did is I bought these pieces here for the battery. I think they're 6x1. I'm not sure. You can measure it and check it. That'll take care of the ends for that steel plate. Then I had to make this on the lathe. You can see that I knurled the end there for the nut that goes right here. And that way I can access the battery without tools. So we'll get the cover back on, make sure that's on correct. We'll get the top on, and I'll use my toolless little knobs here to screw it down, and the one I made on the lathe. So I'll get all those screwed down, get all my ratchets and everything put away. locked up, make sure that the clock is all right, and project over.